Hello everyone, this is Venom Geek Media here. Before we begin, I'd like to thank my members, especially my Centurions, Heretical Cabbage, Jeff Hallam, Nathaniel Mead, David Reeves, Captain's Quarters, Gilmo Martinez, Aaron Fulton, Martin McConville, Pendleberry P, and BOS Domestic Disputes. If you would like to support the channel, then please consider becoming a member. You'll also get access to the exclusive members Discord, where we have all sorts of conversations. It's a lot of fun. If you want to support the channel and be more involved with the community, please consider becoming a member. Right, today I'm going to be doing something akin to a ship chat, but on a bigger scale. I've noticed that in recent episodes of Battlespace, I've been showing a lot of stuff that I know what it is, but it occurs to me that a lot of that you guys might not know what it is. So I'm talking about formations, the formations that I use in particularly the big battle episodes. In this series of videos, I'm going to explain the different formations, what might comprise them, what the organizational structure is behind all the fleets of the Dominion War, and how that all works and meshes together. So I'm going to start off doing the Cardassian Fleet. Why? Well, it's the most interesting doctrine that I've certainly put a lot of thought into it, but also it's the one that people are the least familiar with. So we're going to start then looking at the Cardassian Fleet and its organization, command structure, and as well as that, how that factors into strategy and tactics and doctrine. Any of you who will have watched Battlespace for a long time will know that the Cardassian command structure is a very formalized one, and it is very much a top-down authoritarian structure. It is the responsibility of junior officers to implement the will of their seniors. It is not their job to exercise any kind of initiative or creativity. It is their job to carry out orders as they are given. And this is to compensate for the relatively low quality of Cardassian officers. So the thinking being that the best officers will rise to the top, and with this very firm concrete command structure, this will mean that hopefully that will then trickle back down towards the lower ranks and their conduct will improve. Debatable whether or not that's the case, but certainly that's the idea behind this kind of structure. So it is highly regimented and structured, and it's quite an inflexible doctrine. Now, this does have its benefits. It allows for greater cohesion, and you can be more reliant on your leadership. You know who they are. You're less likely to have people making mistakes. Equally, if the people at the top do make mistakes, they'll be big mistakes, and no one will really question them. I'll just break down really the structure of the Cardassian Fleet and how it is all organized. So let's go right down to the very lowest level. So at the very lowest level, you might have a troop, which is 3 to 4 ships, and that might be led by generally a senior gull. If that depends on what ships these are. If they're smaller ships, it might just be a gull. If it's capital ships like gallows, it might be a senior gull. But generally what happens with this is a troop is generally either 3 or 4. Generally, if it's larger ships, it's 3. If it's smaller ships, it's 4. And generally what happens is 2 troops are paired together into a line. And that is the main sort of formal unit of a Cardassian fleet. So that's 7 ships. With that, you have the combat element. That will generally be the smaller. That will generally be the 3 ships, and then you will have a support element, which will be the other 4. So if we take the instance of a Galor line, which is really the Cardassians' bread and butter, what you have here is 3 Galors. They are your main combat element, your primary element, and you have 4 Hidekis. The 4 Hidekis are really just there to escort and support the Galors. They're certainly not expected to go off and do other things. They are expected to stick to their capital ships and support them as best they can. So that will be commanded by a Grand Gull, or possibly if it was lighter ships, just a senior gull. The premise behind this is not to give with any of these is not to give the commander too much to worry about. So a Grand Gull, he's essentially really, when he's commanding his line, he's commanding 2 elements. He can possibly command all 7 of them in detail, depending on how busy he is. You're really looking at him commanding these as 2 elements that he will use to achieve his objective. Now, going up from that is the division, which is anywhere between 3 or 4 lines, generally 4. And this is under the command of a Jagal. Now, this is much more of a specialized unit, so you will have several lines in a division, and generally these will all be lines who are oriented to a specific purpose. So a division, it will not be a kind of self-contained fleet with multiple roles. There may be some multi-role divisions, but most divisions are specialist divisions. So you have heavy divisions, support divisions, reconnaissance divisions, capital ship divisions, and that's really to make it easier on the person who is expected to do the most commanding, and that is going to be the legate who commands the order. The order will generally consist of anywhere between 12 and 14 lines, so anywhere between 3 and 4 divisions. So the order is the main Cardassian fleet group, and an order is generally a complete unit capable of fighting its own battles independently. It will have its own supply fleet attached to it as well. This is just 12 to 14 lines. These are just combat ships. This does not include the support ships that would be attached to it. It would also be paired with an infantry order, so deployed troops to a planet's surface, and that would be under the command of a legate. And so that can be anywhere between 94 to 108 ships. But that is the basic structure of a Cardassian order. So you're looking at either 3 or 4 divisions. Within those divisions, anywhere between 3 and 4 lines, and within those lines, you're looking at 7 ships. As you can see, the basic idea is to keep the numbers reasonably manageable, because you have to allow for the capacity to command in detail, whereas we'll see with other doctrines as we go through them, that's less of a concern. You can more count on the initiative and experience of junior officers, but that's simply not the case for the Cardassians, who really have to rely on their top commanders to show initiative and dictate the course of the battle. So now we're going to just look at a few of the formations that I use in the Battle Space videos, and if you go and do a rewatch, you might see some of them. So let's start off with one that is probably unfamiliar to a lot of you. This is the artillery line. Here we have 4 Vasads and 3 Brinoks. Now the artillery line is there to provide long-range supporting fire. The Vasads use a lance phaser, generally knock down shields, and the Brinoks are torpedo cruisers that are there to launch volleys of long-range torpedo fire, generally then to destroy the enemy ships. These 2 classes work in tandem and can support each other when used in an artillery line. And so generally this will be paired with either other artillery lines or similar ships. The idea is you're not going to pair this with lighter ships that are going to get into the nitty-gritty. These ships need to hang back. Then we have an assault line that is 4 Echoes and 3 Keldons. The Keldons are obviously a refit of the Galor with an additional module, and the Echo is the older Cardassian heavy cruiser. These 2 paired together are really there for planetary assault. They're really there as the first wave of an invasion force, and they have a good balance of weapons. They can defend themselves against spaceborne threats. They can also deliver that ordnance against surface targets, but critically, they are there to carry out a planetary landing via use, of course, of transporters, but also shuttle bays. Both of them have multiple shuttle bays that allow them to rapidly deploy troops to a planet's surface. Next, we have a pretty simple line, an attack line, or Hideki line. It's very simple. It's 7 Hidekis. You'll rarely see these Generally only in the lighter raiding fleets will these be used, or in territorial defense orders, because Hidekis on their own are not particularly effective. Next we have a battle line or galore line. This is the bread and butter, as I said before, is the bread and butter of the Cardassian fleet. It's changed its composition a lot over the years. If you see the galore lines as used in the Klingon-Cardassian War, they are different from these ones. These are the Dominion War galore lines. As I say, you have 3 galores here that can work as a battery and are supporting each other, and are also protected from smaller ships by those Hidekis. Next is the carrier line. This is probably one that people are less familiar with. Those 3 ships are Tornen class carriers and are there to, well, launch fighters, and they can launch an awful lot of fighters. They're big ships, and they are protected by 4 Rysalax. The Rysalax are there not necessarily to protect them from fighters or capital ships, but more small attack ships that can weave their way through the lines to attack the carriers. If capital ships are really engaging them, something's gone very wrong elsewhere, and the ships can protect themselves quite effectively from fighter attacks. So the Rysalax are really just there to engage and destroy attack ships that might try and harass the carriers. Next up, we have a recon line. This is just one form of recon line. There's a lot of variation. This is a older style recon line using the Lakats and Kulanors, the Lakat being the slightly newer one. This would probably be used more in the 2360s than in the Dominion War, but they were certainly there as auxiliary units. The real reconnaissance line would be the one led by Rysalax, really attack small destroyers as well as swarm and engage enemy capital ships. And again, the Lakats are there to deliver support and covering fire, really. And so that's the basic units of the Cardassian fleet. As you say, you can mix and match these lines together to form divisions that will generally be specialized towards a specific purpose. And then you will form that into a whole fleet that will then be easily commanded by the legate. So that is the Cardassian doctrine as it stands at the Dominion War. That is what I've been using, and what I will continue to be using in battle space episodes covering the Dominion War. So let me know if there's any other units you can think of. Please share your ideas in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Would you like more of these? And I'll see you guys in the next video.